the transportation industry. So currently I'm actually involved in the North-South Corridors underground construction project. I know Aditya from during my undergrad years in NUS, where I met him. He's actually one of my seniors. And yeah, so that's how I got to know about this person. And yeah, I'm really like kind of very proud to like be associated with Aditya today. He has been like involving in a lot of community welfare and like doing things to give back to the community. So yeah, thank you Aditya for giving me this opportunity today.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, so for the students, actually, I was told that today, like, there's this bunch of students who are like really interested about knowing what are the career prospects like for a civil engineer um, in the construction sector. And I was also told that they are like very sharp students. So I'm really looking forward to a lot of discussions today. For today's discussion, yeah, like I call it a discussion, not a presentation, because I don't want it to be a download, but more like a, an opportunity for all of us to talk. So maybe towards the end of the session, we can have like, I'll be like really, very happy to hear questions from you guys, to know your views about like what you think about civil engineering and, what are the doubts you have. Yeah, so without further delay, maybe I'll start sharing some presentation slides, um, mostly photos, like so that the children can understand the concepts or, like what are the various things available within this industry. Yeah, so guys, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
There.
Okay. For the presentation itself, I'll try to keep it very short. Um, like I said, it'll be more of photos. So don't try to memorize anything or stuff. Just like chill, and just like listen to it with open ears and think about it. And like whatever questions that comes to your mind, just note it down. So like we can discuss it after the presentation. So I'll be covering two things. Um, we all have a lot of ideas about what civil engineers do. Yeah. So today I'll actually share some of my experience having worked in this industry for a couple of years, what I have seen civil engineers do, and also like share with you like some of the skill set and some of the like key attributes of a civil engineer, which will help you to like understand better and like also question yourself whether is this for you, and if it is, then what should you do to get there. Yeah, so I'll go off with starting off the definition of a civil engineer. I'm not going to read it. We, like I said, it's more like a discussion. So just like what you see in this photo, there's this guy standing on top of like a multi-story building and looking at the construction that's happening around. There's a lot of workers there, and he's holding a plan. This is what actually civil engineers do. They actually are involved in realizing the ideas of what the the development requires. So what is development? Yes. So we all like generally, let's say you want to go to school, right? So from your house you go to the school, you have to use the roads. Yeah, so road is a transportation infrastructure. And from the roads, like there's a lot of buildings around. There's offices, there's schools, there's playgrounds. All these are all infrastructure around you. So what do civil engineers do? They plan these developments, all these developments. They design the developments, they construct, they maintain, and they operate the developments. So what is planning? What is design? What is construction? Yeah, we'll go into one by one. So coming back to the planning, sometimes uh, we we need to know like what is the future needs of our country. Yeah. So let's take for example the metro rails that they have been constructing recently in India, or the various roads and bridge structures. So all these are urban developments. So these developments are, like forecasted by the various government authorities, like our, say the Indian Engineering Service. They have a lot of engineers who sit together to think what the future of the country needs. So let's say, for example, we want to improve the transportation infrastructure around our, like the city, right? Because you want to convert this city into like a business hub in the next 10 years. So then, what are the infrastructures required? So this is the planning. Is about seeing like 20 years or 50 years from now what the country needs. Yeah. And then designing is comes after the planning. Yeah. So after you have planned, yes, this is what my country wants in the next 10 years, or my city needs in the next 10 years, then from today until the end of 10 years, what are the things I need to do? And then designing it, going into the detail of how it's going to look like, how big is it going to be, from which point to which point is it going to be, you know so that forms the designing phase, which, like most of the civil engineers work on this aspect. And then comes the construction, actually realizing the vision that we have set during the planning stage, and the various details that we have designed during the design stage, it comes into reality during the construction. I still remember those days when I used to go to school. I see the metro rail being constructed. I see some viaducts on top, and I wonder like what is it going to look like towards the end of this project. That was one of the motivations that I had as a kid, which like kind of drove me towards civil engineering. And what's maintenance? Yep. So just like us human beings, right? We all grow old, we get stronger, and then there's a peak performance when like we are at our best. Usually as teenagers, you guys are like at really your the best of your health. And then just like humans, structures also age. So as the structure ages, we need to study, monitor whether the structure is still safe for use, because there's a lot of people using the bridges every day. There's a lot of people using the trains every day. So are these structures still intact? So this comes under the maintenance. So the maintenance involves like monitoring and controlling the infrastructure and doing necessary treatment to the existing structures to make sure that the infrastructure is still safe for use, or the development which I mentioned earlier. Yeah. And operations. Yeah. So this is another phase. Let's say we have constructed a road. So 10 years from now, the road is already ready, right? A lot of people are using it. Is there any traffic jams? If there is a traffic jam, then what has to be done? This involves a lot of analytics, what people call data analytics, right? So people monitor the performance of this infrastructure on a daily basis. How is it operating? It involves a lot of technical skills, and then like trying to come up with some minor modifications, which like kind of is not so expensive, but at the same time helps you to achieve the requirement of the community. So that forms the operations of uh, an infrastructure. So broadly, the planning, design, construction, maintenance, and operations. This is what a civil engineer does with regards to the developments around you. So all the developments around you, you will observe all these five, like stages of things happening around. Take for example your house. The first time when you wanted to build a house, you plan, right? You guys like think, oh, my house has to be like this, like maybe together with your parents, you guys discuss, I want the rooms to be here, like I want a balcony here and stuff. And then when you go into the design, you go into the detail aspects of it. That's where the engineer comes in. So he comes up with the the solid foundation for the house, and then the various structural elements. You see all those walls which is carrying your house, those are the structural elements. All those has to be designed during the design phase. And then comes the construction, which most of you would have been familiar. You would have seen a lot of construction things happening around you. And then the maintenance is where you live in the house, and you maintain the house. Let's say like every 2 years or every 5 years, you paint your house, and then you check whether like there's any cracks in the house, and you do some minor alterations and modifications to it. And then the operations is the life, right? Daily we live in our house. So let's say you want to park the car in your car park, right? It's an operations, you're using it. So you know that like this place can take so much like boxes, or I can only use this kind of furniture in this room, and another room is bigger, so like if there's a bigger furniture, I can put it in the other room. So these are the operations. Your daily life happens there. So you make those small modifications here and there, and then you observe whether the house is fine. So the same concept applies to all developments. Some of the bigger developments that usually civil engineers work in are transportation operations, like bridges, metro rails, underground MRT lines. Yeah, so that's a quick summary about like what the various like job scope that a civil engineer has. So just now we discussed about major infrastructure, right? So let's take for example like a very big expressway, right? The expressway span between states, state to state, or sometimes across states from the north to the south. So such kind of major infrastructures cannot be done by just one engineer. So that's where you need a lot of civil engineers with various specializations. They come together, they bring their experience, and then they they coordinate together to come up with a better infrastructure for the whole nation, right? So what are the various type of civil engineers who do all these works? So that's what you see on the lines next to the planning, design, and construction. So take for example planning. We have urban planners. Who are urban planners? They are people who they are civil engineers who are specialized in planning your city. Take for example Mumbai is such a busy city. There's so many business going on at this metro business capital of India. So what is the need for this kind of a city? You need to have a good like good developments like high-rise buildings to accommodate the various um, businesses. You need to have a lot of flats because there's a lot of people staying in Mumbai, and like you need to have so many houses, but the space is very limited. So obviously you'll go for like high-rise buildings. So this is a decision that an urban planner makes. He thinks about, okay, where is this city today, and in another 10 years and another 15 years and in other 50 years, what is going to happen to the city? And in order to meet the demand of what's going to happen in the next 50 years, what should I do today? So that is the role of a urban planner. Transportation planner is also somewhat similar to an urban planner, just that it's more specialized in transportation. And just now I shared, right, for transportation is mainly related to your movement of vehicles, trains, like flights. So all these kind of like transportation that happens around you has to be planned. You need, how many airports does this state need, right? We have like a lot of airports in the southern part of India, which actually makes it very easy for a lot of business commuters to travel across, like to use these airports as their mode of transportation. They go to these airports first, and then they have to go to a lot of different cities. So this kind of attracts a lot of business to these cities. So that's what transportation planners do. They plan ahead for the future. So planning is always for the future. Design is going into the details. So let's say today I decide that I have to construct a airport at this location. Then the design engineers and the consultants, they come into the picture. They go through the detailed design of how is this airport going to be constructed, right? So how many flights do I need to get at this airport? So if I need to run so many flights, then you know what? How big should my airport be? So those comes under the design engineering. Is a smaller subset of planning. Yeah. And then comes the construction, where you have a lot of project managers and site engineers. So myself, I'm actually involved in the project management, where I work together with a lot of design engineers and planners, and we do the actual construction. So once the design is firmed up, we go in with the various construction equipments, and we start to do the actual development, starting from the scratch, from the foundation to the ground improvement techniques that we do. And then we start to build from the base until the finishing, after which the development is ready to use. So that is what a project manager and site engineers do. They have to deal with a lot of progress, time, money, because every construction project you do, there's a lot of money involved, especially if you're looking at infrastructure projects. It all costs in millions and billions. So there needs to be a very competent team of project management professionals who can make good use of this public money to build these infrastructure which public is going to use in the future. Yeah, so that's for construction. Maintenance, we have maintenance engineers who are specialists in maintaining the infrastructures. Take for example the flights. We go from one point to another point, airport, right? Let's say the airport has a runway, and every day there's a lot of flights coming in and going out. So who checks whether the runway is in a good condition to accommodate the flight? That comes under the scope of a maintenance engineer. It's a very, very important job, because these people make sure that the those public that is using these infrastructures are safe. And then there's public officers, who are basically government officers who take care of the overall maintenance of the city. So let's say we are using the roads around our house. Are these roads in good condition? So there are engineers who are looking at it, who come in to do the maintenance of these roads on a regular basis, to make sure that the cars and the bikes can use these roads without any interruptions. And then comes the operations, which is mainly related to infrastructure again, where like you have those specialized operational professionals who monitor the overall network of roads or flights around the city or the country. So with this as a foundation, we'll go into looking into what are the 5 key branches of civil engineering. So this is more to the academic part, where you will be, where I'll be sharing with you like what you will learn when you're doing, as a, when you're doing your undergraduate program or your masters in civil engineering. In general, there's 5 key branches in civil engineering, starting with the civil and structural engineering, which is basically the part of engineering that um, like teaches us what or how a structure has to be constructed. How is a bridge designed? You can see in this photo, there's an engineer there who's drawing the bridge on how it's going to be. What is the height? You can see on the corner there, h is equal to 20 meter. And then elasticity. What is an elasticity? Is basically the amount of force that this wire here, the rope, can take. And then there is steel harness, and you can see like those dimensions being here. So this civil and structural engineer is the one that comes up with the design, the skeleton of the building, just like how we have a skeleton in our body that's holding us. When we want to play football, we run. There's a skeleton that's supporting us. So these people design the skeleton of those bridges, of those buildings that we are using on our daily basis. The next comes geotechnical engineering. This is a very interesting field of civil engineering, where we study how to do construction underground. In this photo here, you see a brown surface, right, which is a soil. So underneath the roads that we are using, there's a very thick layer of soil which goes all the way to the core of this earth. So when we are constructing an underground structure, what are we doing? We are basically creating a small hole under the soil, the thick layer of soil that we have. And this photo shows a machine here, which is called the tunnel boring machine. So, so this machine here is actually creating this infrastructure for us under the ground. So when we are doing this kind of underground structures, what is a challenge? I mean, it's just creating a small hole, right? It's not, because when we are going underneath the soil, there's a lot of structures above the ground. Say, for example, there's a line of high-rise buildings, and then you're doing this kind of underground construction. Then there is a lot of risk involved to those buildings above the ground. So how do we manage this? That forms the geotechnical engineering that we are talking about. So in this geotechnical engineering, you study the geology, the soil, the different types of soil. How do you manage the various types of soil in order for you to construct this underground infrastructure? Yeah. Next, we have the hydraulic engineering. I come from Chennai, so I have this sentiments um, like related to this particular incident where there was a heavy rain a few years ago, and almost the whole of Chennai flooded. So what actually happened? Rain is actually a very common phenomena. I'm sure all of you know the science behind how rain happens, right? So when this water droplets from the sky start to come onto the earth, where does this water go, right? This earth is a small sphere, and there's such a big sky out there, and there's so much of humidity out there. So where does this water go? How is this channeled? If let's say there's a dam, how do you construct the dam such that the water doesn't overflow from the dam and doesn't go affect the surrounding infrastructure? That comes under hydraulic engineering. This is a part of engineering that's very, very important, because this determines how the water supply for the city is. Then next, we have transportation systems engineering, which is a core focus on transportation, right? So you want to operate a train. How does this train run, right? You need tracks for the train to run. You need power supply for the train. So how do you supply this resources to this train in order for it to run from one point to another? And then there's a demand and attraction. What is demand? How many people want to go from point A to point B? Take for example, you want to go from Trichy to Chennai. Okay, let's say we have one train, and this one train can take, for example, 5,000 people. Then what is the demand? Does this demand meet the supply? If I need, if 10,000 people want to go from Trichy to Chennai on one day and only 5,000 can travel, it is a, then the need for another 5,000 people is not satisfied, right? So who comes up with this kind of a planning? How do you know like how many people want to go from Trichy to Chennai today? That is where the transportation systems engineers come into the picture. They study the data. They go through the details, the past, like what happened yesterday, what happened day before yesterday, what happens on the last few Fridays, what happens on the last few Thursdays. So how many trains should I operate on the Friday? How many trains should I operate on the Thursday? So let's say Friday is a weekend, so a lot of people want to travel against a Monday when there isn't much people traveling. Then how do I design my system such that I don't have a lot of trains that's running empty, but at the same time I can meet the need of the people. That is when my energy is conserved, because when I'm operating a train that is empty, the fuel is wasted and there is an operational cost incurred. There's a lot of team of people who are operating this train, right? There's people to check the tickets, and then there's drivers to operate the train, and then there's cleaners to clean the train. All these people are being paid. And this pay comes from where? It's from public money again, from the taxes that people pay. So there comes the responsibility of a civil engineer to go in and study how do I optimize, how do I like meet the need of the people without having to spend a lot of resources. This is once again more close to planning, but yeah, so that's related to the transportation systems, which is one of the most important branches in civil engineering as well. And last but not the least, we have project management. So what is project management? You see this engineer there standing and looking at a lot of graphs, right? There's some pie chart, there is a histogram there, there's a lot of lines that she's looking at. So what is she doing here? She's basically analyzing information. So let's say I have to construct a building. I can construct the building in 1 year, I can construct the building in 5 years, and I can construct the building in 10 years. But what is the difference between the 1 year, the 5 years, and 10 years? How much am I going to spend if I'm going to construct this building in 1 year against if I'm going to build this building in 5 years? So these comes under the project management, because you only have so much time. You need this infrastructure to be developed by a certain period. So you have a limited time and you have a limited cost, right? And there is so many things that has to be done before the building can be completed and open to public. So that's where the project management comes, where you manage this construction project all the way from the initiation to the planning to the execution to the maintenance, which is performance and monitoring, and to the closing. where you finish the project, you make sure everything is safe before people can use it. So that forms the project management part. So that summarizes the 5 key branches in civil engineering. Any student who joins a civil engineering program anywhere in the um, world will have to study these 5 subjects. There'll be subjects that like 1 or 2 subjects on each of these topics, and then you'll also have specializations. For myself, I specialized in project management because I was really interested in this whole thing. I look at project management as like balancing a set of there's a lot of things that has to be carried out within the same time. So it's about getting that balance.
இப்பதான் போறானா
So that is what project managers do. They balance the various objectives, the various constraints. I'm sure in your 8th standard mathematics, you may have seen linear, um, linear programming, or like a branch of maths where you do the x plus y. Like there's a line, and there's a x-axis, and then there's a y-axis. So these two are the constraints, and you see a line in between, right? The x and y. So that is a relationship between the x and y, correct? So imagine together with x and y, you have a z, another axis, and then there's another 2 more axes, which is time and cost. So that is what project management is about. So yeah, so that kind of summarizes the 5 key branches. So with that introduction to the specialization in civil engineering, I'll move on to the career prospects of like where do civil engineers work. Most of the civil engineers, you will find them working for the government. The reason is because all these major construction projects like metro rails, or let's say like building a big dam, all these are constructed by the government. Why? Because it's for the people. You don't see like one of us, like a private stakeholder constructing a very big airport, right? It's a very rare case. So that's where a lot of government who construct all these major infrastructures, they hire a lot of civil engineers to plan and then oversee the execution of these kind of major infrastructures. So you can see under the government, we have the public officers, urban planners, transport planners, which you saw in the previous slide. These are basically the specialized role that all these civil engineers who are employed by the government, they do. And then you have consultants who are basically, I would say these are the most um, kind of challenging role in civil engineering from my observation, because these are the engineers who actually put what they study in the college into use, because they are the ones who actually design it. We saw the design engineers, right, where there was a bridge, like they look at the detail, the structural engineer who is drawing the bridge. So these are the people who do all these things. They use a lot of mathematics, a lot of physics, a lot of engineering concepts, and then they come up with the design of what is safe for public. So these are people who are highly qualified, who take a lot of professional certification exams. All these, I think, you will learn a long way, when you do your civil engineering. So I'm not going into the details of it, but I am just giving you a flavor of it. Yeah, so that forms the role of a consultant. They are the ones who design things. And contractors, The third one are basically the engineers who do the work for the government, who are the ones who actually do the construction. So they hire the consultants to do the design for them, and then they do the construction of the development, and they get paid by the government or any other private developer for that case. Yeah. So these are kind of the key career prospects for um, civil engineers in general. So you see most of the civil engineers will be on one of these three um, employers. Government is actually, for example, right? Take the um, take the Indian Engineering Service, for example. There's a lot of IAS, IPS. There's this thing called Indian Engineering Services as well, where they where the engineers basically um, plan what the infrastructure for the particular country. And similarly, like you see, Larsen and Toubro is a very big contractor who is currently constructing the metro rails in India. Is also like one of the contractors, main contractors. Yeah. So I think civil engineering is quite big, and it's a bit confusing because you can see there's a lot of things that they do, but it's also a good thing because in a way there's a lot of opportunities for you to choose, and there's always a lot of chance for you to switch between the various um, the various jobs, the various employers, and the various roles that they have. I'll come to the last slide on how did I become a civil engineer. So when I was a kid, like you all, um, I had like some interest in drawing, um, and also like imagining things to visualize objects on how like it will look like. So I look at an object, I was able to draw it by myself. So these are skills that help me to look at this world from a different lens. And I was also interested to join the military during my um, like childhood days, but um, actually my parents were not very supportive of it because I was the only kid. So alternatively, I found that being a civil engineer gave me an opportunity to serve the community, to construct these kind of major infrastructures for public that will help improve the life of people around me. And what are the subjects that you have to be good at in order for you to be a civil engineer or even any engineering for that aspect is mathematics and physics. I would also say that social science is also important for a civil engineer because as a civil engineer, you're constructing infrastructure for public. So you need to know what public needs before you can construct anything for them. And lastly, after my 10th standard, I started going for this IIT entrance training. Like there's a lot of coaching classes. I'm sure there's a lot now that you guys would be considering as well. And yeah, so that was one step towards how I wanted to apply, into the universities, the top universities in India, like the IITs. NIT Trichy is one of the most like popular universities for civil engineering in India. And then there is a School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi, which is also like one of the world-renowned universities for architecture. Yeah, so I got a All India rank of 19 in AIEEE, and I did apply for NIT Trichy as my first choice, and I got it for into civil engineering as well. And I also did a CBSE mode of education, and during this CBSE, like you are already kind of trained to take those IIT and NIT entrance exams. And I managed to score more than 97.25, which was actually the cutoff to apply to NUS, National University of Singapore. Trust me, I would say it is home away from home. There's a lot of my friends and students who came together with me. It never felt like I was in a different country, and that's where I met most of my best friends from. And yeah, it kind of exposed me to a lot of different things which I may not have been exposed if I had pursued my undergraduate in India. And also, I was away from my parents, so I had to, like be independent. So that kind of helped me to develop my own personal discipline. Yeah. So that's about how I became a civil engineer. And this is just an additional slide. I've just summarized the various universities that you guys, if you're interested in civil engineering, can look at. My suggestion is yes, IITs and NITs are world renowned. They are like the best in India, but don't always restrict yourself to just IITs and NITs. Look at the bigger picture. This is an advice that I would have given to myself um, as a 11th or 12th standard student. There's a lot of world-class universities. MIT is actually the world's best university for engineering, and then NUS is ranked the world's second best in civil engineering. And then you have TU Delft, which is in Netherlands, Berkeley, which is a university in California, US, University of Cambridge, which is in Europe, IIT, notwithstanding, is also a very, very globally recognized school. But the reason why I'm sharing this is just think big. Don't restrict yourself to the IITs and NITs, the Anna universities. Yes, they are definitely very good colleges. You must write the entrance exams for these universities, and you must also explore your options to getting into these. But always look at things beyond what people tell you. Do your own research because there's a lot of opportunities out there, and you'll only get it if you do your own research. Try to understand what you want from your career. Yeah. So with that, I end my presentation, and yeah, we can discuss about any other doubts you have about civil engineering or about NUS or any other like universities here as well. I can share whatever I know about the various things.
Thank you so much, Bhaskar. That was a fantastic presentation, and I think I really enjoyed learning a lot of aspects of civil engineering, which even as an engineer, but as a computer engineer, I didn't know about. So that's great. That's really, I think, wonderful exposure for the students, because as you rightly said, they have always been considering institutions which are within the country. And this nature of the system is such that we are not equipped well enough to see beyond the horizons of our own institutions. But I think such kind of sessions gives them that perspective, that panoptic view that they have now, that they can see that there are so many other alternatives, world-class institutions. Because like Mr. Bhaskar said, everything is about the quality of academics and the research faculty and the level of infrastructure in the institution that really matters. Guys, I think when you complete your class 12, that's a perspective many people don't have. They just think that brand names alone can help. Yes, they do help to a certain degree, but I think the quality of the education process is what is most critical. So how are you being taught? What are the facilities you're exposed to? And what are the opportunities you're able to find along your way? So I think with that, it was a fantastic perspective with Mr. Bhaskar telling you about these opportunities available in NUS Singapore. So as an alumnus of NUS myself, I think I can definitely corroborate all the points that he said, and perhaps many more that both of us know, but haven't had the time to say that it's a fantastic institution to be a part of. And I think you should really aim for other examinations apart from what is mentioned, like maybe prepare for the SATs, right? That can really widen your horizon rather than just going for you have your NEET and IIT alone now. Instead of that, probably you can try to gravitate towards other examinations that can help you secure an access or open up a portal for institutions outside the country. So thank you so much, Bhaskar, and I'd open the questions to the students. So guys, please come in line. So don't talk over each other one at a time. So the first question for Mr. Bhaskar. So I'm opening the entire forum for questions. So students, anyone of you has any questions? Any questions could be around, like, how would you get into NUS, or what are some of the things that Mr. Bhaskar did along the way? Anything about the profession, about civil engineering in general? Any questions that you guys have? Or could be even stuff like the usual questions that you ask: what's your favorite book, or something to know more about the speaker and to get some takeaways as well. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Come on, guys. Okay, I think I'll kick off the question that I think which will be beneficial for them, Bhaskar. What do you think? Like, there's always this prejudice that ultimately all engineers in India jump into the pool of computer science. Right? So everyone pursues opportunities that are relevant to technology. And with that being said, civil is known for its distinctiveness amongst the other branches of engineering, because with no offense, but mechanical, electrical, electronic, they all finally converge into an underarm of technology. So, but civil is definitely does use technology, but it is known for its unique course offerings as well, and a unique capability that the students must possess to be a civil engineer. So, what do you think is the difference in the opportunities that are available for civil in India as opposed to those outside? Where would you say would the trajectory be brighter for a fresh graduate?
Okay. Yeah, it's actually a very, very good question. Yes, it's very true. As a civil engineer in this industry, I also observed this, that the influence of computer science in civil engineering has been relatively slow as compared to a lot of other industries, and also in terms of um, the the scope of civil engineers has also been more related to the conventional practices that has been developed like since a very, very long time ago, and it hasn't transformed much over the past like I would say around uh, like 20 to 30 years. But there are a lot of research that's going on at the moment whereby they are trying to replace a lot of the conventional practices through automation, use of robotics to replace workers in order to minimize the safety accidents that happening in the during construction. And then there is IoT, that is building information modeling is one of the hot topics in various countries, including Singapore and India, where like they use these computer aided design, the CAD, right? I think most of you would have known about AutoCAD, Autodesk, who are kind of the leading producers of various softwares that's used by civil engineering graduates. So they are looking at how to transform this and bring in the augmented reality and virtual reality to like see the infrastructure even before it's constructed, so that you can minimize a lot of aberrative works that is still kind of, it still exists in the current construction practice. Yeah, so there is a lot of opportunities for tech to disrupt the civil engineering industry. It's already happening, but just that, the progress is slow because of the massive nature of this industry, I would say. Take for example, like an factory, right? So let's say you want to implement this like automation in a factory. It's relatively easier than bringing it into a major construction project, because the factory is a space by itself, right? Like it's a confined space where a lot of changes can happen. But infrastructure is everywhere, and it's very close to people. So that's where there's a lot of considerations that needs to be made before a particular technology can be implemented, so that like the development of that technology is good enough to make sure that the the public that is around this construction area is safe. So that I see is one of the challenges. There's not enough time for the technology to like learn, because of this kind of constraints. So it, in terms of, like the data, right, the machine learning process is also like kind of slow. But I would say that there is a lot of scope for computer science graduates to also contribute to this industry in the coming years.
Thank you, Bhaskar. That was really helpful. There's another question from Janani Jayakumar. It says, who inspired you to choose civil engineering? Anyone from your family, from any influence that you had?
True. Yes, it's actually. I think I have seen a few civil engineers who are my relatives, and also um, like those friends that I had known since my childhood, my cousins. So I have seen them do projects, which kind of made me a bit more familiar. And I also like saw the whole construction process of my the first house that my dad he built himself together. I mean, like we hired a team of civil engineers and like the construction people to construct it. So having walked that site myself since the beginning until the end, it kind of gave me a different perspective. So yeah, so that's something that inspired me. And having seen a lot of construction activities happening around us, the metro, like I said, I think they started when we were in our fifth or sixth standard, if I remember correctly. And just recently, like a few years back, they had opened it. Um, Looking at those kind of major structures, it was quite inspiring. And lastly, my own skill set, I realized that I had a special inclination towards drawing things, towards visualizing, which I thought is quite an important skill for a civil engineer. So that was how I kind of chose civil engineering as my undergraduate program. And eventually, I would say I was a bit lucky, because a lot of people they choose something during the undergrad, but end up they may regret. But I was a bit lucky that way, that maybe I got the kind of exposure, and also um, I had I had some kind of a judgment that this kind of skill set may help me, and then eventually it did help. And yeah, so that's how I ended up as a civil engineer.
Fantastic. That's great. So there's the next question. It says, who is your role model in general? From
Oh,
Lakshmi.
okay, role model is a good question. Actually, my role model is not a civil engineer, and I think it's someone who most of you know. is actually Steve Jobs. And why did I like Steve Jobs? Yes, actually, a lot of people like him. But the reason why I like him is because of his dedication, I would say. I've read a lot of books about him, seen movies about him, and also like I've seen the way he presents his products. I think that it needs a lot of determination and passion towards what you are doing in order for you to deliver that kind of an excellence.
Sir,
So that, yeah, yes,
Uh,
Suganya, yeah.
Sukanya,
sir,
just
which book inspires you to become a civil engineer, sir?
Sukanya, please wait, ma. Let him complete the answer. Then you
It's
can.
okay. Yeah. Suganya, sorry, your question again. Can you repeat?
Which book inspires you to become a civil engineer, sir?
Which book inspires me? Um, okay. Um, that's kind of a very difficult question because I haven't really read any book about a civil engineer that inspired me. But I would say one of my favorite books related to civil engineering is there's this book on soil mechanics, which is actually by this author by the name of Craig, Craig. So that is a technical book. I wouldn't recommend you to read it at this point in time. But if you happen to do a civil engineering project, sorry, a civil engineering program, then you may be exposed to this. Um, um, I would say that actually it wasn't a book that inspired me to take into civil engineering, but more of online articles. I have read a lot about what civil engineers do. I usually just Google. I think Google is the best, um, self-help. It kind of um, gives you a sense of direction of where you must be heading to. So I always go visit the IIT Madras um, department. I just Google, and then I'll find out what do they do. What are the research projects they have. And I remember that they also host this annual programs. I don't remember the name of the program, sorry, but where they actually they showcase the various projects that these students do. I go and see that. My dad always takes me to there so that he wanted me to go into the IITs, so he always like takes me there and kind of exposes me. And it happened that I really liked it by myself. He didn't force me on it. Yeah, yeah, so those are the kind of exposure that kind of helped me to think about um, civil engineering. It wasn't a particular book or anything. Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's
Sujit.
another question which says, what is the scope or necessity of civil engineering in the next 30 years, according to
Okay,
you?
in the next 30 years. um okay, okay, that's a very difficult question because like I said, civil engineering is very vast. One of the things that we are looking at is autonomous transportation. I would maybe to make it a bit simpler, right? I'll talk more towards my specialization because as a like I said, it's very big, and if you ask a structural engineer, he may have a different answer for you. Having been involved in the transportation sector, I feel that like in terms of civil engineers, one of the um, uh, like scope that I feel would be more relevant for civil engineers in the next 30 years would be like autonomous transportation, whereby like you are required to do coding. Definitely, you will have to know computer science. You will be performing some data analytics, so it's not going to be the same as what civil engineers used to do last time, where they were relying mainly on the civil engineering principles, the formulas that they use to do design. It's going to be very, very different over the next 30 years. And the industry is going through a transformation, like I mentioned. There's a lot of technology coming in. So there'll be a lot of automation that we can see. But where will civil engineers contribute in this process the is where we understand the need of the people, because the need of the people today may not be the same as the need of the people in the next 30 years. Yeah, it will constantly keep growing. So that's where artificial intelligence or um, like any automation processes will not be able to help. You will still need people, human like us, to think about like how is this development going. So that involves a lot of planning. So I would say that the scope of the civil engineers in the next 30 years would be more on the planning part and less on ground or like site management, because site management is something that automation can take over in the next few years. But planning and forecasting are things which will still require human to make decisions, um, and like execute some strategic projects. Yeah, so that would be the scope of a civil engineer in the next few years to come.
Thank you, Bhaskar. There's one more question about what is your dream? Like, what is your end goal or something which you want to achieve through your professional or personal stuff?
Okay, what's my dream? um, okay, there's this there's there I mean, okay, maybe I'll talk about a short-term dream first. I Ever since I started my civil engineering program, I had this luxury of doing a lot of internships where I was associated with a few projects. And after that, when I joined land transport, I also was associated with a few projects. So every time when I'm working on the project, when we start the planning, right, we are always thinking, we are visualizing. But when I finish the project, when I see the thing that has been completed, and when people are using it, the sense of achievement, the happiness I get is really, I would say, tremendous. I still remember the first time I went to the one of the football stadiums where I was involved as a engineer during my internship period. When I was sitting in that stadium after the thing has been completed and watching the match happen, I was very proud. And when I was walking around the corridor there, walking into the stadium, I can see everything like finished and being used by people. And I can still remember the time when I was walking inside that site when it was still under construction. It kind of gives you a special kind of feeling that I think only civil engineers will have, mainly because all our projects are very, very long. Like, for instance, the tunneling project that I'm doing right now, I know that is only going to be completed another 10 years. So starting from today until the next 10 years, I'm going to see the thing happen slowly, progressively, and then strongly. Yeah. So at this point in time, my dream is to achieve the vision I have for this project. And in the longer term, what is my dream? Um, I would say that my dream is actually to um, develop the necessary technical skills that I need to be a good civil engineer, and also the people skills that I will need in order to lead a team of engineers like me, because I know there'll always be a lot of engineers who are coming in. And engineering, especially civil engineering, is an industry which relies a lot on experience. Whatever we study from the universities is 50% of it, but the remaining is only when you actually go and do a project, you actually learn, what is it in reality, right? So I would say that I would want to develop the people skills to train more young engineers like I am now, at when I am more experienced in the future. Yeah, so that I would say is my dream.
So there's one question that, sir, you said about Indian Engineering Service. What is the qualification? What are the subjects to be prepared to appear for the Indian Engineering Service entrance exams?
Okay, yeah, yeah, I can see someone really being interested. That's great. It's a very good question. Yes, to appear for the engineering entrance exam, sorry, the Indian Engineering Service, you will have to take the IAS and the same exam as IAS and IPS, the civil service exam. You need to clear, and you will be required to attend a few interviews. The basic qualification you will need is actually engineering degree, and I think a civil engineering degree um, would help you to um, like go into the IES stream, and sometimes I think being a professional engineer helps you better because it is certification that kind of um, it's one of the best credentials to say that you are someone who has the experience and skill set to be a good engineer, right? So that is actually also given by the board of engineers in India, so for which you will need a 6 years of experience, work experience as an engineer. Yep. So that's kind of the qualifications that you will need to appear for this exam and be one of those engineers.
So there's another question. What is the most challenging engineering project that you've been involved with during the past few years? Of course.
Okay. So one of the challenging projects is actually, I would say that, okay, um, I would say I was actually exposed to different challenges in the various projects that I have done so far. Currently, I'm exposed to the challenge of doing an underground tunnel. It's going to be an expressway tunnel, which is going to be underground. So that means I need to, like work within the central business district, whereby there's a lot of high-rise buildings, and I need to make a hole under the earth in order to facilitate this tunnel, and that is going to cause a lot of disturbance to the existing high-rise buildings around my tunnel. So I need to manage the safety of these like infrastructures around my project. At the same time, I need to finish it within the next 4 years. So we have a time constraint, and I have a limited cost, and there is a there is a lot of risk involved, which we are managing. So this is the challenge that I'm facing in my current project. And before this, I was also involved in another project which involves um, the construction of a roof, a moving roof of stadium. You can Google when you're free. It's called the Sports Hub of Singapore, where you have a moving roof on top of a football stadium, which is actually to facilitate the match during the event of a rain. So this moving roof is something quite unique and involves a lot of engineering details, and also a lot of safety fixtures, because you don't want the roof to be stuck when it's moving, and also when something is moving, it creates more disturbance to the surrounding structure, so it has to be more stronger in order to like facilitate this the movement. So I would say that was another challenge that I was exposed to. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pastor. That was fantastic. Thank you for answering these questions and taking time. I'm sure you have a very busy schedule at work, and in spite of all that, you have agreed to do this for us, and I think that's a very nice gesture of you, which not many would be willing to do, because it's a great thing to be able to contribute back to the academic community. And I think this is one of the most precious ways in which you can share your experience and help them foresee a lot of things that can decide how they're going to build their lives and how they're going to make their life-changing decisions and choices in a more informed manner. So that has always been the objective of the session, and I think I'm more than happy to say that that has definitely been fulfilled and by the enriching session that it was today. So I'd like to extend a warm thanks to you, and I'd like to thank all the students here who have also made it today and who have listened to Mr. Bhaskar share about his unique experience both at NUS and his professional experience thereafter. I think it's a privilege to have been an audience to his conversation. Thank you so much once again, Bhaskar, and wishing you a very happy weekend.
Thank you, Aditya. Thank you for organizing this, and thanks to the school for also giving me this opportunity to talk to the students. I should say that actually the quality of the questions were quite good. I don't know if I would have asked the same questions when I was in my eighth standard or like around this age. So yeah, all the best, guys. So I just want to reiterate one small point is um, yeah, don't ever restrict yourself to what the people around you is saying. Always do your own research, look for opportunities, and think big so that even if you don't reach the sky, you will at least reach the moon. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Bhaskar. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
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 Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you,
Sir.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so much.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.